it's Beanie. I've been trying to read more recently, and I thought a really fun way to do that would be to attempt a 24-hour reading challenge. So for this challenge, I will not be reading for 24 hours straight, but my goal will be to complete 24 hours of reading as quickly as possible and try my best to finish the challenge in 2 days over the weekend. But without further ado, let's get started. Good morning. It is currently almost 6:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. I do not normally wake up this early on a Saturday morning, but I got up extra early so that I could start reading right away because I want to try and get to 12 hours of reading today and then hopefully 12 hours of reading tomorrow. And then if I don't quite reach 12 hours on either of those days, then I will be able to spill over and read a little bit to fill up my 24 hours on Monday or Tuesday. But ideally, I would get as much as possible of this challenge done on this weekend. So I'm going to start bright and early. You can see the window behind me that the sun has not even quite risen yet, but I'm going to start into my first book of this challenge. So the first book I'm going to get started with this morning is A Court of Thorns and Roses. But yeah, let me go ahead and start the timer. And let's get this reading challenge started with this book. Okay, I feel like whenever I start a new book on my Kobo, I actually have to take a second to figure out the font that I want. So the one that I had from my last book that I read, it's kind of just like this blocky lettering, but I kind of just want to take like 2 seconds to figure this out. I don't know how well you can see that, but this is the font I have chosen. And now I'm actually going to start reading, I swear. Once the sun rises a little more, I should go read outside on the balcony. Reading for about 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I have made it to 13% of the way through this book. I don't know if you can see there on my Kobo, but my Kobo is predicting that I have about 10 hours to go on this book, and I feel like I'm definitely starting at a very slow pace. I don't know if it's just me, but whenever I start a new book, whether it's a new genre or just a different author, or even if I'm going between a physical book and a book on my Kobo, I just start off so slow. It's like I have to relearn how to read at the beginning. So I feel like it takes me until the 20% mark in a book before I actually start to pick up the pace and read a little bit more fluidly. My goal with this challenge is that yes, I want to read as much as possible. Yes, I need to make it to 12 hours today and 12 hours tomorrow if I want to complete my goal of 24 hours within 2 days. But also, the books that I've chosen to read for this challenge are ones that I think I'm really going to enjoy. So A Court of Thorns and Roses is super hyped. So many people have liked it. I want to make sure I give these books the opportunity to be good. So I guess the goals that I'm setting for myself aren't hard goals. Yes, I'd like to finish this today, but if I start to just get burnt out to the point where I'm not enjoying it anymore, I will probably pause. And then that's where I'd extend this challenge to maybe 3 or 4 days. But anyway, it's too early to tell if I'll have to do that. Anyway, let me jump back into this book, put on my timer again, and get a few more hours of reading done. So I'm feeling a little sleepy. I think I just didn't sleep very well last night, so I'm gonna head out for a little break and have a walk and grab some food and some coffee and then come back and try and actually read a little bit more because at this pace I'm not gonna get to 12 hours a day, but I'm gonna try my best. Do you know when the character is falling into a trap, but they're just so quick to be oh great, this great thing is happening, I can't believe it, can't believe my luck, and it's you're so stupid, stop, just think for 2 seconds. Okay, the bad thing almost happened, but someone had to rescue her. She didn't figure it out herself. I'm disappointed. beautiful fall day. I don't generally read outside, but when it's fall like this and there's only like, I'd say like a 2-week period, maybe a month of like the leaves being pretty and like some of them have fallen, but not all of them have fallen yet. And it's just like still warm enough that you can go outside, but cool enough that you can wear a flannel. And like, I don't know, something about this weather is so nice, and it's only here for such a short period of time that I just want to embrace it. Sorry for the sirens. So I'm probably gonna have to go back home to read more of my book because I have a few chores that I need to do in between reading, but I'm gonna try and come back out and find another cute little place to read outside before the end of the day because I don't want to waste this day. It's such a nice weather and so beautiful. Something scary is happening. Guys, this book kind of gets intense, like, I'm not gonna lie. So a lot of the story right now has taken place in a forest, and I really like reading about stories that have like interesting settings to me, and for whatever reason, stories that take place in a forest where they describe like the trees and the weather and stuff like, and the woodland creatures, I just generally like that setting, so I'm really appreciating that about the book. Okay, it's actually a little bit later now. It is 7:49 p.m. and I've been reading for almost 8 hours. I'm not sure if you can see that or not. So I wanted to quickly talk about some pros and cons of my book so far since I'm about halfway through. So I guess starting with cons, there is one thing that's happened twice so far in this book that's kind of annoying to me, and it's the trope of character A gets told by character B, don't do this thing. And then character A goes, okay, yeah, don't worry, I won't do that. Of course I wouldn't do that, I'm not dumb. And then they go and do it anyway, and then character B has to rescue character A. So like that kind of situation has arisen twice in this book, and the character who gets into the trouble after being told specifically not to do something just ends up getting rescued, and then it's like, oh, okay, we're all good then. But I find that kind of annoying because it's just like, why did you have to do that? Like, they said, don't do it, don't do it. You're kind of just getting in the way and causing trouble for yourself. And they do kind of explain it away in this book where it's like, there is kind of magic in the book and things that can like compel a person to make not the best choices. So it does kind of make sense when the character makes those poor choices because it kind of fits with the storyline. But still, I just find that kind of annoying to read about because it just makes it look like someone's being dumb and you're like, hey, use your head. They just said don't do that. Why are you immediately doing it after being told not to? But in terms of the pros, there is romance in this book, and I'm pretty sure I'm about to get into the heavier parts of romance, but I'm actually really loving this book, and I think this is a good one to choose to try and read in one day because it's really easy to fly through it, and I think it's only going to get better from here. I think I'm foreseeing this being a book that's pretty good in the first half, but really good in the second half, so hopefully I'm right about that, and I will let you know. It is much later. It is 10:30 and I am still only at 9 hours 39 minutes of reading. And yeah, as I'm getting more and more sleepy this evening, I'm reading slower and slower. And I think the reason for that is like when I'm reading a book, I'm really not one to skim or miss out words. Like if I read through a paragraph or a page and I feel like my brain didn't really comprehend what was on the page, or like I just skimmed through it and didn't really like let the words go into my head, then I will reread that paragraph or that page until I actually feel like I've read every word and properly visualized the scene. So as I'm getting more tired, I'll like have more instances where I read a page and I'm like, wait, what actually happened? And then I'll reread the page and reread the page until I like understand it. So I think I've just been getting tired and just doing that, and I'm just like crawling through my book now. And it would have been cool to finish this book all in one day and be like, oh, I read ACOTAR in one day. That could have been like a cool feather in my cap. But I'm really loving this book. A Court of Thorns and Roses, it was a really awesome book, and I think I'm going to love this book, and I think I'm going to love the entire series. And I'm just not willing to sacrifice a good book for the sake of a challenge or for like a cool thing to say. Like, I can still finish this tomorrow. Like, there's no reason that I won't be able to pick this up and finish this tomorrow. So yeah, I'm probably just gonna lay in bed and read a little bit more before falling asleep. But then as soon as I feel a little bit sleepier, I will just go to bed and then just wake up and pick this back up in the morning. Okay, so I've been reading ACOTAR this morning, and I just got to the part in the book with the riddle. So if you don't know, this riddle is very famous because ACOTAR is really popular online. So like BookTube or Book Talk, a lot of people talk about this book, and they talk about how there's a riddle in the book. And I was really good at not getting spoiled with the riddle, so I kind of stayed offline and didn't read anything or watch anything to do with this book because I wanted to get to the riddle myself and try and guess what the answer is without it being spoiled. So I've just read the riddle, and I was taking some time just to try and think of an answer, and I even texted my family to see if they know what it might be, and then when I get the answer, I'll tell them. But yeah, I'm not going to say it here, so if you're curious to know what the riddle is, or if you want to see the answer, I'm sure you can just Google ACOTAR riddle and it should come up. But my guess for it was that the answer is... It doesn't look like they say the answer to the riddle right away in the story, so if you are reading it and you read the riddle, you still have a little bit more time to read before they reveal it, but I'm not sure when that's going to be. So yeah, I'm going to continue reading and see if I was correct. So it is now 5:46 p.m. I've been reading ACOTAR all day long, and I just went to a little cafe and got a little beverage to finish off the book. And now I want to give my final remarks about this book. So my final star rating for ACOTAR is probably going to be 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it, and I would say, if I'm trying to sum up the plot without giving anything away, I'd say it's like a twist between Beauty and the Beast, Twilight, and then the main character kind of reminds me of Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games. Parts of it remind me also of Spinning Silver, if you ever read that book. So if you're into any of those stories, then I think you would really like this book. And I'm really excited for book 2 because book 2 is the most hyped of the entire series, so I'm very excited to read that one next. So I'd say my favorite pros about the book would be the characters. I actually really liked the characters, and I didn't feel like I connected with the main character from the beginning, but it got better as we went throughout the book. And that's the main thing I'd say about the book, is that it started off good. There was no points where I just wasn't vibing with the book or didn't like it, but I will say that as I read the book more, I liked it more and more. So I liked the second half even more than the first half, and I think my favorite part of the whole book was the series of events that happened from about like the final third to the end was my favorite part. So when you get there, you'll know what I mean, but yeah. And I really loved all of the fantastical and mythical elements to this book. It was super fun to read about. I loved the settings. There was really beautiful, cool settings in this book, and settings are really important to me in a story, so all of that was really fun to read about. And if I were to say a con about the book, there were some parts that I think I mentioned before where I felt like, oh, it doesn't make sense that these characters did this, and those things for the most part did get explained later on. I think I was just reading this book with like too much of a critical eye, and probably just because I was reading all day and like getting a little bit grumpy maybe and being like a little bit of a harder critic. But there was some things that I just felt like weren't completely believable that made me like not be as like into the story as maybe I would have been. And then the second con that I have would be that the author likes to use a certain term to describe when someone is afraid or scared, and that term is "my bowels turn to liquid." So I would say I could have gone without that description being in this book, but other than that, yeah, like I said, 4 out of 5 stars, really liked it, really excited to continue the whole series, but we will not be going to second book today. So in terms of hours into my reading challenge, my Kobo is telling me that it took me 17 and a half hours to read this book. Quite a bit longer than I would have thought that it would have taken me, but it's all good. The book's done. I finished it in 2 days, which for me is still really fast to finish a book. Like, to read a whole novel in one weekend, I don't even remember the last time that I've done that. So I'm not mad about the time. We're at 17 and a half hours, which means I have 6.5 hours left. So I need to pick one more book to read throughout this evening. So I think to make things a little bit easier for myself, since I just chose like one longer novel to read and clearly I kind of struggled to get through it, I think I'm gonna do a shorter novel for the rest of this challenge. So I'm going to be reading Shady Hollow. It's kind of a shorter novel. Let's see how many pages it has. Okay, it has 222 pages, so not bad at all. So I'm pretty sure I can finish this book in 6.5 hours. I'll read this book tonight and see how far I get. So I've been reading Shady Hollow now for just over 3 hours. I'm about halfway through the book, and I just want to say this is such a charming, cute, whimsical story. So all of the characters are like woodland animals, and they live in a little town called Shady Hollow, but this is a murder mystery book. As for the challenge, I have read for over 20 hours over the past 2 days. So right now it is about 10:19 p.m. So I'm going to head to bed, and then tomorrow I have just about 3.5 hours left to read, so I'll probably just finish this book and that'll take me pretty well to the end of the challenge. But yes, I will see you back tomorrow and hopefully we'll wrap all of this up. So it is now Tuesday, and you may have noticed I did not film at all on Monday, and the reason for that is just that after work I ended up having a lot of stuff come up. So I had a dentist appointment that got moved to yesterday evening, and then I just had some chores to do after. But I did try to make good use of my time yesterday. So on my phone I have the Kobo app, so pretty much any book that you download on the Kobo automatically goes onto the app. So I had the book Red Rising on there that I had read a couple of weeks ago, and you can see here, this is all the books that I have on my Kobo, so they're just available here on my app. So while I was waiting for the dentist, I had about 20 minutes to kill, so I decided just to open up Red Rising and reread the first couple of chapters of that book, because technically that did count as reading time. And it was actually kind of nice. Usually I do not reread books after I finished them. I kind of just like forget about them, move on to the next thing. But it actually was kind of satisfying, because I remember when I first started Red Rising, I was a little bit confused at the beginning because you do kind of get shoved into the world and there's kind of new terms and new futuristic technology stuff that they mentioned. It's a little bit confusing right off the bat. So it was kind of satisfying to have read the entire book and then immediately go back and reread those first 2 chapters now that I actually understand everything that's going on. So yeah, I got about 20 minutes of reading from that, and then I went ahead and continued Shady Hollow last night just before bed. So I think overall in my challenge I have about 2 hours left. And also so far I'm really loving this book. It's so cute. It's basically exactly what you would imagine it to be. Like, it's whimsical, it's cozy, all of the characters are adorable, and I'm just in love with this story so much. Like, even the food that they mention, they talk about how they're eating like roasted chestnuts and berries and mushrooms and like anything that you kind of imagined woodland creatures to be eating. And I just feel like that kind of detail adds so many layers to this story, so I'm really loving it. Right now I'm on page 161, just about to start chapter 23. This is kind of where I'm at in this book. So I picked up this little pastry to eat tonight, so I'm gonna eat this and read my book and have a strong finish to this challenge. Okay, I've made it to chapter 29 and page 198. And this book only has 122 pages, and the murderer has not yet been revealed, but they must be revealed very, very soon. So I'm making my guess right now as to who I think the murderer is, and I'm not going to tell you my guess because I don't want to spoil it in case I'm right. But I will let you know if I guess it correctly, so let's see. completed the 24-hour reading challenge, I wanted to come in and give my final thoughts and my final reviews of the books I read. So for A Court of Thorns and Roses, the book that took up most of this challenge for me, I loved this book. I think I rated it a 4 stars. I loved the characters, I loved the storyline, I loved the scenery. All of that was really, really great. I will say that this is the type of book to kind of grab popular tropes and storylines from other books and kind of like mesh them together and put them into a new book. Like, it's not like a 100% original storyline. There are like tropes that you've kind of seen in other books before kind of put into here. So I will just mention that just because I know some people can get kind of annoyed by like a book copying other books, where I wouldn't say this one is copying, but I will say it's kind of half and half between things that I've seen before in other series and things that are new that I've only ever read in this book, if that makes sense. So keep that in mind if you're deciding whether or not you think you'll like this book. So then the next book I read in this challenge was Shady Hollow. So this is basically the perfect cozy little fall book because it is very whimsical. The little woodland creatures and the descriptions of the town Shady Hollow were just so cute and cozy. And this is not a very long book. It's definitely one that you can pick up and read easily over a weekend or something. Maybe if you're going on a little trip to a cabin or something like that, you can bring this along with you, and it is so cute. So in terms of how the challenge went as a whole, I will say I thought I was going to read a lot more than just 2 books. And I think what I've learned doing this challenge is that sitting down and reading for many hours without any breaks is a skill that requires practice. And that is not a skill that I have been practicing at all recently. And yeah, it just turns out that my reading speed gets very, very slow when I've been forcing myself to read for a long time without taking breaks. But anyway, that's just something I've learned, and I do think it's okay to be a slow reader. I find just the way that I read every single word, and I like to visualize as I go, so I often will pause at the end of like a very descriptive paragraph and just kind of stare off into space and imagine the scene playing in my head. So had I not done this challenge, I probably would have just done my normal of 1 book throughout the whole week, but now with the challenge, I was able to read 2 novels through just 3.5 days, which is really, really fast for me. So I'm very pleased with that. And I know a lot of people who do this challenge are able to get through like 4 or 5 or 6 novels in the 24-hour time limit. So if you're one of those people, congrats. I am very amazed. I don't know how you do it, but I'm happy to be here and give a little bit of representation to the Slow Readers Club. So if you're part of Slow Readers Club, leave a comment down below to let me know. And who knows, maybe I'll practice my reading for a little bit, see if I can read for longer and longer stretches of time until I can get a little bit more comfortable with that, and then maybe I'll come back to this challenge and see how I do next time. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!